Dear students, very good morning, and we are moving to the next part of the lesson, that is forest transformation in Java. Where is Java? That is in one of it is in Indonesia. Okay, Java is now famous for a rice producing island in Indonesia. Why it is famous now? Because of rice production. But once upon a time it was covered mostly with the forest. It was a forest area before. The colonial power in Indonesia were the Dutch, and as we will see, there were many similarities in the laws for forest control in Indonesia and in India, because the European people, wherever they came, they made their own rules and regulations according to their need. They want good hardwood trees for shipbuilding and rail sleepers like that, so they are made more or less same laws. Then it was the part of Indian subcontinent, but in Indonesian side, who came? Dutch people came here in India. British people become more prominent. Okay, Java in Indonesia is where the Dutch started forest management. Here in India, they started with the central India, and in Indonesia they started with Java. And the who done? Dutch people. Here, British people. Like the British, they wanted timber from Java for to build ship. In 1600, the population of Java was estimated 3.4 million. There were many villages in the fertile plains, but there were also many communities living in the mountains and practicing shifting cultivation. We have seen that one shifting cultivation. It is not only in India or not only in Asian continent, other continents also they was practicing the same. Then the communities, those who was practicing in shifting cultivation, the like that people was there in Java. But in the fertile plain, the common people, they was producing rice, or they was very good farmers. Okay, next one, woodcutters of Java. The Kalangas of Java were community is skilled forest cutters and shifting cultivation. One of the tribal group, those who was practicing very skillfully shifting cultivation, that was Kalangas. Then they were so valuable that 1755, when the Mataram kingdom of Java split, and the 600 Kalang families were equally divided between two kingdoms. When the kingdom divided into two groups, what happened? This tribal group also, the kings, they divide the tribal group into two groups, equally they divided. Without their experience, it would have been difficult to harvest teak and for the kings to build their palaces. Without good trees and wood, the kings, they can't make a palace or temples. So that's why the skill it is needed for the king's palace purpose and other purposes. When the Dutch began to gain control over the forest in 18th century, they tried to make the Kangas work under them. Then when the Dutch people understood their special skill and that things, they started to use the Kangas instead of the king. Then 1770, the Kangas resisted by attacking a Dutch fort at Joanna, but the uprising was suppressed. Then the Kangas, when they understood the Dutch people, they are misusing them or exploiting them, then they started to resist that one. Then what happened? The Dutch people, they suppressed that of their rebellion. Then the Dutch scientific forestry. India also we have seen that one. Here also British people, with the help of German forest advisor, they started scientific forestry here, like Dutch scientific forestry in Java. In 19th century, when it became important to control territory and not just people, the Dutch enacted forest laws in Java, restricting villagers' access to forest. What happened here in India? How the British people done the same way, Dutch people also done there in Java. Now wood could be cut for specified purposes like making river boats or constructing houses, and only from specific forest under close supervision. Under the supervision only they can cut trees and parts of trees for their house making purpose or boat making purpose. Villagers were punished for grazing cattle in young stands and transporting wood without permit, or traveling on forest roads with horse, cart or cattle. If even though if they are taking their cattle to graze in the forest, they used to get punishment, and for doing everything related to forest they want to get permission. As in India, the need to manage forest for shipbuilding and railway led to the introduction of forest service. There also they started forest service. In 1882, 2,800,000 sleepers were exported from Java alone. However, all this required labours to cut the trees, transport the logs and prepare the sleepers. The Dutch first imposed a rent on the land being cultivated in the forest, then exempted some villages from their rents if they worked collectively to provide free labour and buffaloes for cutting and transporting timbers. If the village people they are ready to give free service, then what the Dutch government was doing, they was reducing the rent, or they avoided the rent, or they said no need to give rent, otherwise they want to give rent for their cultivation. Then, and this was known as the Blandon Youngstown system. Later, instead of rent exemption, forest villagers were given small wages, but their right to cultivate forest land was restricted. Then after some years, the rent that and that free work like that things they started to stop it, accepted. Then what they done, they started to give a small wage to the villagers. But if they want to cultivate the forest area, it was very with the permission, or there was a restriction on that. Then Sabin's challenge around 1890. Surantico Sabin, a Randublanc village, a teak forest village, began questioning the state ownership of the forest. Who taken the ownership? Dutch people. And he argued that the state had not created the wind, water, earth and wood. State never done anything for the development of the forest, so it could not own it. Soon a widespread movement developed amongst those who helped organize it were Sabin's son-in-law. By 1907, 3,000 families were following his idea. Some of them Sabinists protested by lying down on their land when the Dutch came to survey it, while others refused to pay taxes or fine or perform labor. So one of Sabin he given an idea that the wood or water or air, it is nothing made by the government, and they never done anything for the development of the forest. So they can't say like that forest it is owned by state. Instead of that, what they want to do, it is the people's resource for their development purpose. They can use it. And what they done, they was not ready to give rent, or they are not ready to give any fine, or they are not ready to perform the labor for the Dutch people. That was the challenge what Dutch people they faced. Then war and deforestation. The First World War and the Second World War had major impact on forest. In India, working plants were abandoned at that at this time, and the forest department cut trees freely to meet British war's needs. Not only in India, everywhere it happened the same thing, and according to the need of the European people, they started to cut, especially for First World War and Second World War time. In Java, just before the Japanese occupied the region, the Dutch followed the scorched earth policy, destroying sawmills and burning huge piles of giant teak logs so that they could not fall into Japanese hand. So the Japanese then exploited the forest recklessly for their own war industries, forcing forest villagers to cut down forests. Many villagers used this opportunity to expand cultivation in the forest. After the war, it was difficult for the Indonesian Forest Service to get this land back. As in India, people need for agricultural land has brought them into conflict with the forest department, and department's desire to control the land and exclude peoples from it. So the same way in India, what happened in the same way in Java also, first it was in the hands of Dutch, then slowly Japan become powerful there in Java area or in Indonesia. So first Dutch people exploited the Java forest for their timber purpose, then Japan came and Japan also used the forest and the wood for their sake. Then new development in forestry. Since 1980s, the government across Asia and Africa have begun to see the scientific forestry and the policy of keeping forest communities away from the forest and result in many conflict. So up to 1980s, because of this European laws, each and every government, national governments, what they done, they try to keep the forest community away from the forest, and because of that one, each and every government face many conflicts from the forest community. Conservation of forest rather than collecting timber has become more important goal. The government has to recognize that in order to meet this goal, the people who live near the forest must be involved. Many cases across in India, from Mizoram to Kerala, dense forests have survived only because of villagers protected them in sacred groves known as the Sarnas and Devara Kundu, Kan, Rai, etc. The government and later they understood the village people, especially those who are living near to the forest, they was protecting the forest like a sacred thing. Some villages have been patrolling their own forests, with each household taking it in a turn, and instead of leaving it in the forest guards, local forest communities and the environmentalists today are thinking of different forms of forest management, and later the government understood that the village people only, other than the forest guard, the village people, they are protecting their forest. And nowadays we can see some of the NGOs or environmentalists, they are giving more importance for the forest management and stopping the deforestation and making social forestry or scientific forestry, etc. By this we are completing this lesson. We will continue another one lesson in next video.